Hello, it's Tayler Silfverduk, registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and today I want to talk about the common stressors and fears I see and hear when it comes to dining out as a celiac and how we can potentially use those to our advantage in staying as safe as possible when we're dining out. So if you're a fellow celiac who is not interested in learning how to dine out beyond going to dedicated gluten-free restaurants, if this isn't like something you're considering for yourself, you don't think it's worth it, I totally respect that, but this probably isn't going to be the video for you. This is for the celiacs who are looking to grow their skills and feel more comfortable when it comes to showing up in restaurants. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Let's dive into it. Again, my name's Tayler, registered dietitian, specializing in celiac and also fellow celiac of 10 plus years. So I want to start with sharing this lovely graphic that is kind of highlighting a lot of the common stressors that I see when it comes to dining out with celiac. Some of the bigger ones are feeling like you're not sure if the server is going to take you seriously or not. I think this is like one of the bigger fears that I see when it comes to dining out, is just like not feeling like a lot of restaurant staff fully believes you, is actually going to take you seriously, is actually going to do what you ask, and this like kind of sense of distrust that we have in restaurant staff based on maybe lived experience, based on observation, based on what we've heard other people experience. And this is definitely a valid and true fear of dining out. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I also hear people being afraid of worrying about if the kitchen is too busy to take them seriously too. So not just that the server is going to take them seriously, but is the kitchen going to have the time and the space, and are they going to take them seriously? I also hear a lot of fears around language barriers and that add stress and cause difficulty in making sure that what you need is actually being communicated and being understood and heard. And I've heard a lot of horror stories about people accidentally getting glutened because of a breakdown in communication due to language barriers. People are also afraid of just getting gluten, period. Like, that is a valid and real fear that a lot of people are facing, especially people who tend to be symptomatic and have severe reactions to gluten. This kind of elevates the stress, elevates the fear. Not to say that it's not stressful and scary for someone who is asymptomatic or maybe has milder symptoms, but that it is a added fear if if this goes wrong, you're not going to be able to work for the next couple of days, or you're going to be down for the count for the next few months. That adds a huge stress factor. You also add on the stressors of the unavoidable risk of human error. I mean, as a celiac who's been doing this for 10 years, and even as a dietitian who specializes in this, I still make mistakes in my own celiac management sometimes. I could read a label 5 times, think it's gluten-free, and then the 6th time I'm like, how did I miss that it has malt extract? I don't know how I read over that. Like, sometimes it's just human error happens and we make mistakes. And then, the added fact that this is a stranger that we're trying to communicate with, it can make us feel even more stressful. And then finally, just not being in full control of our food can be really stressful, really scary as celiacs. So I say all this not to further panic you or further scare you, but to really validate the fact that these are all valid fears. Whenever we delegate our food prep, there are going to be risks. Dining out is not about zero risks. It is not possible with celiac disease, when someone else is in charge of your food, to have zero risks. And in general, in a gluten-centered food system, a gluten-centered culture, regardless of the situation, zero risks is just unreasonable to expect, because we're living in a world not built for us. And dining out with celiac is about reducing the risk and maintaining quality of life. So if you feel like your quality of life is suffering because you're not dining out, if you feel like your social life is suffering, your mental health is suffering, if you feel like, it's just unrealistic for you to only dine out at dedicated gluten-free restaurants, or it's unrealistic for you to never dine out, and you're looking for ways to kind of ease your way into it, first, I'll leave lots of resources down below. I've got some videos coming out, or I have some videos out that potentially help. But also, it's valid that you have these fears, and these fears are these fears can be a helpful tool in moving forward and kind of first reassuring you and calming them, but also giving you points of action that you can take to make sure you're staying as safe as possible. Because like I said, these are all valid. These are all real fears, real points of risk, real scary things that we can address. It's not like we just kind of have to let them sit there and fester. We can take steps to manage them. So I'm going to give you a few examples to kind of help you, and then you can kind of go along and do this exercise on your own too, as you discover your own fears and your own feelings and your own stressors. So, oh, I went backwards. So the first fear we can dissect is the fear of not being sure if the server is going to take you seriously. Now, there's no guarantee that a server is going to take you seriously, but some things that you can do to kind of put the odds in your favor here is to call ahead of time and assess the restaurant's culture. When you call a restaurant, do they know what you're talking about when you're asking about gluten-free precautions and, having celiac disease and needing special care taken with your food? Do they sound like they're annoyed or irritated or like they are trying to just get you off the phone? Do they sound like they're yes-manning you and they're just telling you whatever you need to hear in order to get you in the door? Calling a restaurant and kind of having that pre-conversation before you're actually sitting down and talking to your server can kind of get you a idea of what the restaurant culture is. How seriously do they take it? What's the training of the staff? What is it? What are you going to experience? So that when you get into the restaurant, you kind of have more of an idea of, are you going to need to do more work with your server? Are they going to be more likely to know about celiac and gluten-free precautions? Are they not? And it kind of gives you more insight. So that's a way that you could potentially address this fear of feeling not sure if your server is going to take you seriously. There are no guarantees, but it can kind of help calm some of those stress points and also help you know if this is going to be a option for you that has risks that are more easily or better managed. Another fear that you could potentially break down into an action point is if you're worried about if the kitchen is going to be too busy to take you seriously, you can do a lot of different things to figure out when is the best time for you to dine out at the restaurant. You can look at the Google listing to see when the restaurant is going to be slow. I do this a lot when I'm planning on going to restaurants. I like to look at, and you can do this for not just restaurants, but also the gym. I like to go to the gym when it's slow. But stores, that kind of thing. You can see what is the traffic like, how busy is it going to be, and you can try to plan to go during slow times. Sometimes this information isn't on Google, and sometimes this information isn't fully accurate. So you can also just call and ask, hey, when are your slow times? Or you can say hey, I've got a gluten allergy. P.S. I know celiac is not a gluten allergy, but sometimes that terminology is just easier for restaurant staff to understand. But you could say hey, I need these gluten-free precautions. When would be the best time for me to come in and not burden the kitchen staff as much? What's your slow period? What's the best time that they're going to be able to accommodate me? That kind of thing. That can be something that can help kind of address this fear or this stressor. If you have got a fear of the language barriers adding stress to feeling understood, and you want to kind of make sure that you are more clearly being understood, you can call ahead of time and kind of get some clarifications, get some answers, and or you can bring translated dining cards. Now, I do want to emphasize, I see this recommended everywhere in social media, and I think that translated dining cards can be extremely helpful, and I think dining cards can be extremely helpful. And please, please, please understand, this cannot be the only way that you're staying safe when you're dining out. This is a great supplement to staying safe when you're dining out. It's a great supplement to conversations you need to have with restaurant staff, a great supplement to asking for the proper precautions you need taken with your food, and it cannot be a substitution. This is a great supplement, not a substitution. So they can be very helpful, and they can also help address those language barriers, and that's something that you can consider when you're going to dine out, especially if it's at a restaurant that is, that might have people speaking another language, or if you're in another country. If you're worried about getting glutened, obviously this is a valid fear, and there's only so much we can do to kind of calm that fear, because you never really know fully until you eat your meal and you're kind of paying for it or not later if you're symptomatic. But if you are really, really afraid of this, take steps that you need to reduce the risk of getting glutened, and make sure you're doing the things that you can do that are in your power to really manage the risks and reduce those risks, so that even if you do get glutened, at least you know that it wasn't because you didn't do anything. It's because, you did everything you possibly could, and it was in the restaurant's hands, and something happened, human error, and unfortunately you got sick. I will say, though, that as I've lived with celiac disease over the past 10 years and I've practiced and built up my dining out skill, the amount of times that I get glutened has become rarer and rarer. And I actually have kind of broken this down into like 4 steps that I follow when I go to dine out to make sure that risk is as low as possible for me. And that's something that I do teach in my gluten-free dining course if you're looking for that kind of help. And I'll talk more about that at the end of the video if you're interested, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Again, there is a risk of getting gluten when you're dining out, but it's all about managing that risk and making sure like you can at least reassure yourself that you've taken the steps you need to take in order to stay safe. And that sometimes can help kind of alleviate some of that stress. And then not being in full control of your food. That's kind of playing into that fear of getting glutened. It can be really uncomfortable, especially when we're so used to being in full control of our food. So here, I think it's helpful to kind of focus on controlling what you can control, making sure that you've screened the restaurant for safety, that you know what to ask for, and that you're speaking up and asking for the things that you need. And if something isn't right, something doesn't look right, you're asking questions, you're asking for food to be remade, you're sending food back when you need to, etc. But this is something that you can also kind of do to kind of support yourself. Again, I can't emphasize enough how valid these fears are as a celiac when it comes to dining out. And I do want to acknowledge too, if you're someone who's feeling really nervous, it is totally fair for you to feel like this isn't something that you're ready for, or that you want to start easing into it and you don't feel comfortable just going full-blown dining out at restaurants yet. This is a very scary, uncomfortable thing, and as you feel like you're ready to start adding this into your life or expanding it into your life, as you feel like you're ready to start exploring restaurants that aren't dedicated gluten-free and like preparing yourself for that, I hope that this is helpful. Kind of just writing out that specific fear that you have. Sometimes just writing out fears, at least for me, can be helpful in just like getting it off my chest so I don't have to like carry it fully. For some reason, I kind of just like imagine my journal kind of shouldering some of that weight too when I write this stuff down. But also kind of looking at how I've taken each fear and broken it down into an action step that you could potentially take to address that fear. Just so that you can kind of assure yourself, okay, so I'm afraid of a language barrier here potentially impacting my ability to communicate my needs. So to deal with that language barrier, I'm going to bring a translation card so that I can know at least that they're getting the like basic clear points that I need them to understand when it comes to my safety. So kind of like hopefully that activity is helpful. Now, all of that said, I do want to invite you to consider signing up for my gluten-free dining course if you're someone who is looking for help with dining out and you want to learn from a fellow celiac and also celiac dietitian. If you want to stop hoping you've said enough and learn how to clearly and quickly communicate your needs at restaurants, from screening to actually getting your food and making sure it's safe, if you want to kick guilt to the curb and get comfortable speaking up and telling restaurant staff what you need, if you want to get rid of self-doubt and become confident in your ability to dine out by practicing your dining skills too, the Gluten-Free Dining course is here to help you do that. It'll teach you how to dine out in 4 simple steps, and it's going to give you 4 places in the dining out process for you to bail if you get scared or freaked out or if something's not going right, so that you have 4 basically verifications that your food is going to be as safe as possible when it comes to dining out. So you'll learn the 4 steps that I take when it comes to dining out that's helped me reduce the risk drastically on getting glutened when it comes to going to restaurants as a celiac. You'll get scripts that you can copy verbatim when you're going to restaurants, cross-contact precautions that you can ask for when you're going to restaurants for specific cuisines, and also have cheat sheets for common restaurant chains in the USA as well. You're going to get a ton of resources to make sure that you are as equipped and prepared as possible, and you're going to get all the tips and tricks that I've kind of acquired along the way of the 10 years that I've been living with celiac, and also getting all of that information broken down to you in simply explained terms from a fellow celiac from a celiac dietitian who specializes in this and does this on a day-to-day basis with clients. So if there's something you're interested in, I'll leave information about this course down below. Absolutely no pressure, but it is there for you. If you feel like you're someone who wants a more handheld approach to learning how to dine out, you want me to hold your hand through it, this course is really going to help you do that. So if you're interested, again, it'll be down in the description box. But that said, that's all that I have for you today about kind of breaking down those fears into action steps to kind of help reassure you when it comes to dining out. I hope that you found it helpful. I hope that you found it reassuring. And at the very least, I hope that you found it validating, because it is scary. And I think it's important that we don't skate over that. It's scary. So if you found this helpful, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe for more content brought to you from a fellow celiac and celiac dietitian. And all of that said, I will see you when I see you.